You know, it's that moment I think everyone with a job has worried about. You say something. Maybe it's a joke, maybe it's in what you thought was a private meeting, and just like that, everything is on the line. One comment, one single slip-up, and your whole career could change in an instant.
So, is that really possible? Can one comment, just one, actually get you fired? And if it does, what are your rights? Well, today we're going to dive into two absolutely fascinating real-life cases from Australia that give us some pretty clear answers.
So, meet our two main characters. On one side, we have Garth Saunders, a miner up in Queensland, and on the other, Adam Reitenskild, the multi-million-dollar CEO of the betting giant Tabcorp. I mean, these guys are at the complete opposite ends of the corporate food chain, but they found themselves in almost the exact same career-ending boat.
All right, so what did they actually say? Let's get right into the specific words that kicked off these huge workplace dramas.
Okay, let's start with the miner. So, Mr. Saunders was on a two-way radio, and he was accused of making a whole bunch of really lewd comments. And the one you see right here, that was a big part of the official complaint. Now, here's the real kicker. This all happened after his company had just put everyone through some pretty intense respect at work training, which had a strict zero-tolerance policy for this kind of talk. And then you have the CEO. He was in a closed-door meeting back in August 2023. At stake, a massive $860 million wagering license, and he allegedly made this comment about a female official. Someone in that meeting tipped off the company anonymously, and well, that's what started the ball rolling on the end of his career there.
So, the comments are out there. Now, how did the companies react? This is where the two stories really start to go in completely different directions. Let's take a look at how each company decided to handle things.
Okay, so the mining company, they did things very by the book. They started what's called a show cause process, which is a really important part of being fair in these situations. It basically means they said, here's the accusation, now you get a chance to explain yourself. They even let Mr. Saunders listen to the audio recordings and write a formal response, which he did, and he said he was sorry. And then, the company took nearly 2 whole weeks to think about it before making a final decision. It was a very methodical, step-by-step process.
Now, compare that to what the CEO went through. It was an absolute whirlwind. On March 14th, he gets called into a surprise meeting and is told the board had already decided he was out. Then he gets an ultimatum: resign by 3 p.m. or you're fired. He asked for more time to get a lawyer's opinion, and they basically said no. It was a total showdown, and it was all over in a single afternoon.
So, faced with losing their jobs, neither of them went down without a fight. They both took their cases to Australia's Fair Work Commission. Let's look at the arguments they made.
And their defense strategies could not have been more different. The miner, Mr. Saunders, his argument was basically, come on, it was just banter. And he claimed his supervisors were laughing, so they must have been okay with it. He even said his MDMA comment was actually a misunderstood reference to couples therapy podcasts. The CEO, on the other hand, argued that he was ambushed and given a Hobson's choice, which is a fancy way of saying he had no real choice at all because the board had already made up its mind to fire him. So, we've heard the comments, we've seen how the companies reacted, and we know what the legal arguments were. Now, for the moment of truth. Let's see what the commission decided. For the miner, the outcome was pretty cut and dry. The Fair Work Commission said his dismissal was justified. The key word they used to describe his comments was egregious. But here's where it gets interesting. When you look at the details, the commission actually agreed his resignation was what's called a constructive dismissal. Basically, he was forced out. We'll define that in a second. And this is a huge but. Even though he was forced out, the commission said the company had a totally valid reason for doing it because of his comments. They were very clear that a supervisor laughing along doesn't just cancel out company policy. So yep, it was a dismissal, but it was not an unfair one. His claim was tossed out. So what exactly is constructive dismissal? It's a really key idea in both of these stories. It's when your employer's actions make your job so unbearable that you feel you have no real choice but to resign. When that happens, the law basically says you didn't quit, you were fired.
All right, so what about the CEO? Well, in the first round of his fight, the commission sided with him. They agreed that his resignation was not voluntary at all. Legally speaking, it was a dismissal. And the commission really laid into Tabcorp for how they handled it, calling it a carefully stage-managed ultimatum. This really gets to the heart of why the process is so important. They found that Mr. Reitenskild was never given a real choice. By not giving him a fair hearing, the company totally undermined his rights.
This win allowed him to move forward with his full case, and it all ended with a confidential, out-of-court settlement.
And just to give you an idea of the stakes, by being pressured into resigning, the CEO was set to lose between $5 and $10 million in shares, options, and bonuses. So you can see why he was willing to fight so hard.
Whew. Okay, so these are two really complicated, high-stakes situations. So what can the rest of us actually learn from all this? Let's try to boil it all down into some clear takeaways.
All right, let's break it down. First, the minor's case proves that just calling something banter is not a get-out-of-jail-free card when it comes to serious misconduct. Second, the process really matters. The CEO's case shows that a fair process isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a critical right. Third, just because a supervisor turns a blind eye or even laughs, it doesn't make bad behavior okay, especially if there are clear company policies against it. Fourth, if you get forced to resign, the law might see that as a dismissal, which opens up paths for you to challenge it. And finally, maybe the most important one, remember that your rights don't just disappear the second your job ends.
You know, both the minor and the CEO had to learn about their rights the hard way, right in the middle of a massive, career-ending crisis. It's a really stark reminder that knowing this stuff isn't just for lawyers, it's for everybody. So that leaves one last, really important question. Do you know yours?